The broadcast is live. Here we are again, wondering where Tim is.
Yeah, it's just the three of us, the terrible trio.
Just three of us.
Good thing I saved my comics that I bought this week for tonight and didn't show them yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I was
That way
actually
we have something to show off.
week, but I didn't go to the shop.
What was that?
I was actually going to buy a comic this week, but I ended up not going to the shop because of the weather.
What is in your sights? What
Young
comic?
Hellboy.
The what?
Young Hellboy.
Young Hellboy. Okay.
Mm.
I did not see a shelf copy of that, so I didn't know it was out.
Yeah, I think it came out this week, but Mother Nature hasn't been kind, so I didn't go.
I just cleared another 3 inches from the driveway today. Yeah. It's crazy how much snow we've had.
We're not getting a lot of. I mean, we got some snow, but we're getting a lot of ice.
Okay.
So there's a lot of power outages and things like that going on.
Matter of fact, just before the first storm, which was what, 3 weeks ago now?
Something like that, yeah.
When we got 20 inches around here, right. And I went and because I've got a John Deere lawnmower with a plow in the front of it that I clear the driveway with, and I've got a 5-gallon gas can, probably 4.5 gallons in there.
Yeah.
And now I have to fill it up. I filled it up just before the first storm. Now I have to fill it up again. That's how many times I plowed to clear the driveway. It's just like, holy cow, make it stop.
There you go.
Tons and tons of driveway clearing. It's Comic Rack. How are you doing?
You finally managed to find us on a Friday evening.
Yeah, how you doing? Well. Evening all. Evening to you too.
I have a question. Okay,
yeah.
This Kirby logo that's on my T-shirt, what color does it show up on your monitor?
Gray.
Yeah, it does on mine too, but this logo is actually bright neon green.
Oh wow. Maybe it's doing something like green screening it somehow.
Maybe. Yeah.
I would think that has something to do with it.
I guess.
That is weird. That could.
It is weird. I agree because I look down, it doesn't look the way it looks on screen.
Looked at my phone, and here we were. Hello from Canada.
What part of Canada do you live in, David?
And we only have Canadian viewers today.
I've been to Canada twice. I actually enjoyed both my visits up there. I liked it a lot.
I have never been to Canada.
The only thing I did not like are Canadian Hershey bars. I don't know what they do to them to ruin them, but they do.
I don't like Hershey bars. Vancouver, he's from.
Vancouver. Okay, I've been to Calgary a couple times.
Manitoba. See, I don't even know if Vancouver's a province or a city.
Vancouver is a city in British Columbia, which is a province.
Okay. Is that the one
it's above Washington State.
That all the Hollywood stuff takes place? All the
filmmaking
goes
on in BC, yeah.
I actually one of the things I like to do is go down to Bryant Park and hang out and take street photos. I also used to like to draw in Bryant Park. Right. A couple of my friends and I would like Chris Geruso used to hang out with me in Bryant Park sometimes. And one day I looked over and started talking to this random young woman who ended up being from Vancouver because she had an Invisible Woman hat on. But that was the only person from Vancouver I think I've ever met in real life.
Hollywood. I've met people from Vancouver. Yeah.
I don't think I have.
I've never been to British Columbia. I'd like to see it one of these days. I've been to Alberta twice, and Alberta is a lot like Texas in some regards, in that it's almost like oil country. There's a lot of oil drilling up there, and there's a lot of cattle raising.
A lot of roughnecks. Ketchup chips.
You know, you hear this cliche we have in America that everybody in Canada is really nice.
And
it's true. Everybody there is really nice.
Okay. some good Canadian cartoonists, Seth being my favorite.
Rob Waltons lives in Canada too.
Who else? The three of them. Who was it? It was Seth. It was, they're right up there. All of a sudden, I can't remember their names. Chester Brown. He's the other one who's Canadian. And Joe Matt.
Okay, gotcha.
Those are three Canadian cartoonists. Like all three. Matter of fact, I reread Joe Matt's Peep Show last year, maybe it was sometime, and really enjoyed it.
I've heard of that, but I've never actually read it.
I've never read Joe Matt's Peep Show. If you can get the stuff from the late 80s, early 90s, that was one of my Joe Matt lived in Toronto for a while. Seth is amazing. Yeah, Chester Brown, he's the other one.
The conferences I went to in Calgary were fantastic. They had a lot of stuff we don't have here.
In the late 80s and early 90s, when Lee Liefeld and Todd McFarlane were hot, Seth, Joe Matt, and Chester Brown were my kind of big three that I was watching all the time. And reading all the time. And Peep Show started out in, I think, Drawn and Quarterly magazine. And was originally he only had like 1 or 2 pages in the magazine. So he jammed it full of stuff. And it's this sort of confessional autobiographical comic. And it was just really amusing and well done. And then a couple of years later, he got his own comic, which lasted a bunch of issues, but not a lot. Only I don't even remember having 12, but it took him like 10 years to get out all 12. And it was just a really good. It was just about his life and how cheap he is and working on his comic and his romantic adventures, which were messy. And it was one of those things that, and like I said, in the late 80s, early 90s, my friends and I were all into Peep Show.
Gotcha.
So it's very nostalgic for me reading it again, too.
Hal Foster was also originally from Canada.
Who was that?
Hal Foster, who drew Prince William. He was from Canada. He immigrated to the States.
Now, Captain Canuck isn't creator-owned, right? Because I'm
not sure.
I always heard, because whenever I hear about Captain Canuck, they mention Richard Cumley in Captain Canuck. And but then people say, oh, it wasn't good until he took it over or something like that. And I was like, is that I always thought he owned that, but I wasn't sure. It actually used to show up on our local newsstands, I think, sometimes, but I never got my a copy of it in like the early 80s or something.
Right.
Wasn't Bill Black involved with Captain Canuck for a while? One of his multiple publishing ventures that didn't last past issue number 3 before he did AC Comics.
Right. I just saw him. What was I looking at? Oh, when we were looking through those Invaders books. Oh. I think in the later issues of the Invaders, when everybody and his mother was doing an issue of Invaders, Bill Black actually either penciled or inked one. I can't remember.
Oh, we forgot the 800-pound gorilla of comic creators from Canada too. Dave Sim.
Literally 800 pounds?
No.
Canuck.
Figure.
It's Canuck, not Canuck. I'll see if I can remember that.
Canuck, yeah.
So who wants to see what comics I got this week?
Let's do it.
We will start with the picture of everything else. Let me get a solo layout. This is issue 2. I really enjoyed issue 1. I enjoyed issue 2 too. It's got this sort of watercolor-ish style. It's funny. I can never tell these days. I think this is actually watercolor, but you never know.
Right. Anything that's got a giant squid on the cover is fine with me.
Yeah. That had something to do with the end because The story. This actually takes place like a year after issue 1, and in issue 1, it's these two painters in like the early 1900s, I think.
Oh, I remember you talking about that.
Right. And they meet an Englishman who was the painter who painted the picture of Dorian Gray.
Right.
And he can paint people dying, and they die. And they stumbled onto this guy. And the one real vain artist decides to go off and apprentice with this Dorian Gray, the Englishman, the Dorian Gray painter, leaving his buddy behind. And his buddy, and what the English painter did too is he painted. There was one guy he wanted to kill for whatever, we didn't know what reason. And so he painted him, and then he tore the canvas in half, and the guy was standing in front of our lead character and literally tore in half. And this gave this guy like PTSD. He can't paint anymore, so he became an art critic. So now we cut to a year later or something, and he's being an art critic. And he doesn't know what happened to his buddy, and he doesn't know what happened to this English painter.
Right.
And he's just trying to live his life, but he's all messed up from this experience.
Oh.
And so then this issue is all about him, and then his buddy shows up again, and he's like, "What, are you crazy?" But at the very we'll spoil it for you, just because I think this is where those octopus tentacles come from. At the end, we see that the painter was working on his what he calls his masterwork, which is a picture of Paris. And at the end, we get this bloody sky starting to happen. So he's obviously trying to kill everyone in the city of Paris with one of his paintings.
How lovely.
So it's good. There. Do you recommend issue 2? I was on the fence about. I liked issue 2. I enjoyed it, but I really liked issue 1. So I don't think I was gonna. I wasn't on the fence about anything. Got an email from Gorvian. I haven't responded, but good to hear he's still going. Yeah, Gorvian shows up every now and then.
It was in Stay Puft's channel earlier this evening, where Ian Varangian and Vigilante were talking about Heavy Metal the movie.
I never made it through Heavy Metal the movie. If I did make it through, I don't remember it. I just remember being disappointed by it. It didn't thrill me that much.
Yeah, I never saw it. It's not something that appears on TV. Although, from what I understand, it's a collection of vignettes.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It always had music rights issues. Oh, that's right. He's
Corbett
was in Texas. That's why we have to hear from him.
Gotcha. The music rights is why it took longer to get a home release on video, and why it took 20 plus years to get the soundtrack released on CD.
Oh. Yeah. That just reminded me. Comic Crypt of Castle Hills had some flooding in his house. He just put a video up today.
Oh, good.
He doesn't think it's too bad, but he doesn't know the extent of it because he's got so much stuff piled up.
Yeah, that sounds like
that. And like all his toys were on top, and there were comics underneath. And I think it was a water. It was a water heater flooding, though. It wasn't flooding from the outside. But a water heater can. I had it flood and ruin some stuff on me once.
Well, I can tell you from the South because you called it a water heater instead of a hot water heater.
That.
Why do you need to heat hot water?
Now that you mention it, I think he did call it a hot water heater. And he's in Texas too, so.
Damien said that the movie was kind of weak. Some of the segments, it's like anything else. Some of the segments in the movie are better than others.
Yeah, I wasn't fond of it. I like the movie. It's not bad. But I have a soft. A lot of people, I think, do have a soft spot for it because it was the only thing like it when it came out at that time.
That's very true. Yeah.
Have a good night, La Raza.
Well, trying to read current Marvel comics does get you tired. Not because it's a hard read, but you're trying to comprehend why on earth would anyone bother doing that.
It would make me sick and tired, not just tired.
Lost a quarter of his collection in a flood.
Oh, damn.
These stories about losing your collection in a flood or a fire, man, Ugh. No, no
I
good.
have almost nothing on the floor.
Mhm.
So when the water heater went, it actually only wrecked a couple of the bags actually saved the comics because because the water didn't get to the comics because of the bags. But right now I have no comic boxes on the floor. I have them all up.
There is a company that makes a bag that you can hermetically seal your comic boxes in.
Right.
It's airtight. You know.
Why don't you just store your comics in the attic instead of the basement? I mean, in North America, all you guys live on the ground floor, like savages. Like we in Europe, where we have minuscule apartments and we have to share our bedrooms with comics. We are civilized. But seriously, I don't understand why people store their comics in the basement in places that can have flooding. It's
because we have so much land, we don't live on the floodplains like some places do.
Yeah,
but in general, in the U.S., there's some places that built on floodplains.
People that moved back to New Orleans afterwards, I'm like, what are you doing?
If you live in New Orleans, you shouldn't even own paper.
Attics are hard to get into often. There's that too.
Yeah, basements are easier climate control than attics are.
Like, there is no basement in my house. I'm on a high ranch house, what they call that, and those have no basements. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it was a water heater flooding anyway, so that doesn't that's on the ground. There's our water heaters in a room off the ground floor, so it's not like it's in a basement at all. Once in Future number 16 is this? This was pretty much an action issue. Let me show you a little of the insides.
Is there a giant? There is. Okay.
Action issue. We found out a little bit about the government workings going on. Because like I said, this is our grandma, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and her grandson fighting monsters, mostly monsters from literature and legend. And we just found out this issue that because the grandma kept saying, "Don't call the cops! Don't call the cops! Don't call the cops!" And in this issue, we found out that some like secret government agent showed up to like one of their houses, one of the women who works with them, who's new there too, because there's like one super secret government agent assigned to this monster stuff, and he just shows up if they mess up. So it's like too many cops got killed, so he had to go out because they want to keep this monster stuff so quiet, because the more people who believe in it, the more the monsters show up. So it's on a need-to-know basis that they even exist, and it's like too many cops died in a couple of the stories. So now the government guy had to show up and try to figure out what was going on. So I thought that was an interesting twist. Okay. The comments are there for a weekend. I was sorting the worst time. Then maybe it was fate. I looked around for future me that had traveled back in time to relieve me of my Batman and oh man, yeah. Losing those in a flood is no fun. And a complete run of G.I. Joe, the complete Don Rosa run on Ducks. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah, like the stuff I lost was minimal. And like I said, if I have comics in a box in a closet, those are the ones I don't want, the ones I like are on shelves around here because I can get to them. If they're in a box in a closet, which I've got, a dozen boxes in a closet, but that just means I could get rid of those and not miss them.
Yeah, I have a separate room where I have all my comics in there, and I get just so sick of looking at stark white cardboard boxes. I'd really like to replace them with filing cabinets.
Well, my father taught me how to build shelves when I was a small child, and I've been building shelves ever since. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got nearly 10 bookcases full of comics, I would say, of varying sizes. That's why I got the racks I did for my comic boxes. Get them off the ground. Yeah. There's also those I forget who makes them. That they like turn comic boxes into shelves, kind of thing. They're like a rack for your comic boxes.
You talking about drawer boxes?
Slide them in and out.
Are you talking about the drawer boxes where they're made of the same material as a regular comic box?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, they're made by a company called Collector Drawers.
It's been 24 hours of Redder. Yep. And we don't know what happened to Tim.
Well, technically,
he said he might not be around, and he wasn't. And filing cabinets would be good. Yeah, filing cabinets were really good for comics. I know people who use them.
So do I.
They're big, heavy, and expensive. Usually they find them when someone's giving them away.
Yeah, you can either find them, or sometimes you can get them like either estate sales or if a business gets rid of a bunch of what have you, then sometimes you can pick them up cheap then.
I don't know that I have one box I'd hang on until the end, just because being an indie collector, all of my comics are worthless just about. So if I wanted to replace them, it wouldn't be that expensive. So
wow, that's a good question.
It's nothing I ever really thought about that much.
I have some that are worth quite a bit, like my Tech #1's pretty.
It's like, if you're going to hold on to one to the end, it may as well be the expensive ones. But I've sold all my expensive ones over the last 5 years, so I've got nothing in it. And it's like, some Finder is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I remember Finder.
I'd keep my favorites, but my favorites aren't really valuable. So it's like, if I lose them, I could probably score more copies of them fairly easily. Gore-Vidal.
Hey, they were just talking about Gore-Vidal earlier, and then
he found the rest of the Night Streets run.
He's been cool. Yeah.
By the way, Comic Crack, you're the only one besides me who I've ever seen have Night Streets. Oh yeah, I still have I have a special section for my first comics that I made up. And it's funny, I have two variations of my first comics. I have the first comic that I remember, and then the first comic that I know when I started collecting them. So sometimes, like the first comic that I remember, like it might be like Defenders. I think it's Defenders 37 with the Plant Man cover.
Right.
But I didn't start buying it off the racks till about issue 50. So I was like, those are two different things to me. I can remember the first one I ever read, and I can remember when I first started collecting it. So it's a strange little division in my mind.
I think the first one I actually bought off a rack was probably the first issue of Micronauts.
Yeah. See, I think I got. What year did the Micronauts come out, by the way? Do you remember?
78, I think.
78? I don't think I got the I think I got all the Michael Golden Micronauts in one fell swoop.
Gotcha.
So or right around issue 10, I can't remember, because I know I didn't buy #1 off the stands.
Right.
And I didn't know it existed. I think, like I said, around the neighborhood, some kid must have been selling them, because I think I started buying it off the stands around issue 10 or 12.
It's funny. I met Michael Golden at Heroes Con, and I was wanted to talk to him. And
right.
Renee Whitstatter was his handler.
Right.
I asked him, said, "Did you enjoy working on Micronauts?" And he said, "No." And then it's like, where do you go from there?
Michael enjoyed nothing.
Yeah, that was a short conversation.
What year did you meet him?
Ooh, late 90s.
Okay, you met grumpy, bad with the crowd, Michael Golden.
Well, one thing I noticed, and maybe it's just me, when Renee was not near him, he seemed a little more friendly.
That's because I think
close by, he was more focused on doing a sketch or writing or whatever he was doing.
she did get him. They have an interesting relationship there too with their working, because they also date. They've been dating all these years, Renee,
Gotcha.
and she keeps him working because he'll stop and chat. But like Michael Golden was Marvel's art director in the mid '90s, so that's what I know him from.
Okay.
After John Romita retired, like a year later, they hired Michael Golden to be their art director. That's a whole other story. But he was only there for a couple of years, I think. I can't remember how many, but really nice guy. But he was bad with fans. He didn't like fans. He resented fans.
Yeah.
But then in like the early 2000s, Renee whipped him into shape. She was like, you have to learn to be good with your fans.
Gotcha.
And over the years, he has actually learned to be good with his fans and enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you met like Michael Golden in the 90s, there's a good chance, he would be, and you were a fan, there was a good chance he was being short and brusque with you.
No, he wasn't being short or brusque. I could just tell he really enjoyed working on the Micronauts.
There are also times when, like I've seen at cons, Renee walk over to him and go, "Get working again. Get work," when he's talking or whatever, and he has to do a drawing.
That seemed to be kind of the vibe that I got from that. So.
Yeah, I've seen her do that too, but like he really was, not good with fans for a lot of years because for some reason he resented them. I never quite understood that. Oh yeah, really good to see you're good. Go yeah.
Excuse me.
How's Texas is not doing one.
He said he
I don't get the cheerleaders reference, but I must have missed that Gore video. Now let's see, what else did I get? Issue 2 of Ha Ha came out. This is by the guy who writes Ice Cream Man, and I think they're having a different artist every issue. This artist is, and the guy who writes Ice Cream Man is W. Maxwell Prince, and this is Zoe Thorogood on art. And each issue is a done in one, just sort of like Ice Cream Man is. And the sort of connecting theme is clowns. And this issue was about a young mother who had some sort of mental illness, and it's told from there's the young mother, told from the point of view of her daughter as an adult. When her mother took her on one last trip to Funland, this amusement park, basically kidnapped her from her father. She wasn't supposed to take her. And her mother wears this clown makeup all the time for no reason we can figure out, except, it makes her happy in her tormented life. But good, nice story. Enjoy. And so far, I have to figure out if I put this on my pull list or not. Because, like I said, I get an email every week from my shop with final order cutoff, and I can either order an individual issue or put a comic on my pull list. And sometimes once, like I said, I read the first issue of this, and I wasn't sure if I wanted it to go on my pull list or not. I said, maybe I'll try the second issue first. And so I could have just put the second issue on my pull list. And so I'm going to look out for that now because I want to put it on my pull list. It was very good. I enjoyed it. Either you guys ever read Ice Cream Man?
Never have.
I have.
Yeah.
No, I've heard your reviews of it. I've never read it.
I think there is the art style, and the story to me seems disjointed. There is, apart from the Ice Cream Man himself, there doesn't seem to be a connecting thread throughout all the stories.
Well, that doesn't bother me. I'm okay with it being an anthology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a problem with an anthology, but the Ice Cream Man itself, it seems redundant. And then they drop a bombshell at the end of the first arc, like trying to make him more important than he's been shown up to then.
Yeah, but then they got away from that, which is the strange thing. They had like this. they tried to show you a little world sort of outside the anthology story of the Ice Cream Man. They introduced like a foil for the Ice Cream Man too. And they gave a little bit of backstory, and then they moved away from like I said, the latest issues have been way more conceptual, like the Dr. Seuss issue, the 9-panel grid issue, and stuff like that. It's like they got away from the Ice Cream Man, the abortion issue, Christmas abortion issue. So those ones were way more conceptual and like without any Ice Cream Man backstory. But I'm okay with that. That doesn't really. It's funny. I've never been one of these comic book readers who needs all the answers, kind of stuff. Like I always reference my friend Rob, who's a much more sort of conventional comic book reader, and he wants to know the backstory on stuff. That's what he likes. It's like, what's the backstory? Like on he read Finder. He read my copies of Finder and enjoyed them, but he wants to know more about the backstory on Finder and how the world got that way. And I'm just like, I'm okay with the world just being that way.
Even though I've only read like maybe 2 issues of it my entire life with The Walking Dead, what I was curious about was not what these characters were going through. I was curious about how did the world get that way? Where did this virus come from? How did it spread?
See, that's typical. That's sort of typical zombie stuff. That's why you're interested in it, because usually that's what the zombie movie is about.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't like zombie movies. Yeah.
Right. The Walking Dead is all about. He always said this is what The Walking Dead has always been about. What happens after the zombie movie ends? That's how he described it. And so how the world got that way was just not important. You have no idea when The Walking Dead first started how many times I explained that to zombie movie fans.
Gotcha.
Because they were always like, well, what happened? How did the world get this way? What's it? Because when you're watching a zombie movie, there's always certain rules that you expect, and the origin always gives you the rules. And if you don't, that's the world that zombie movie fans live in. And when they didn't get that, it just blew their minds. They're just like, no. What do you mean? And I half a dozen times I explained that on Facebook to my friends that no, this comic isn't about how the world got here. It's about what happens after the zombie movie ends. Did I explain that a lot of times? But it took them a while to get it, just because they're not used to it.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've seen a guy do some math and coming to the conclusion that at the supposed rate of infection and the way they're killing zombies every episode, and taking into account other possible survivors, the entire United States should be free of zombies by the end of the first season.
Yeah, I never believed that stuff because you had to make up all the science.
Yeah,
that's what hooked
me. I
want
to know who kept mowing the yards in the TV show.
Me too. That's what hooked me on.
Wait a minute.
And another guy complaining. If you have trouble finding gasoline in a post-apocalyptic scenario, considering you still have the roads in the streets, why doesn't anybody ride bicycles? They should be easy to get, and you can ride them anywhere.
They did that in The Stand. Enjoyment, the human drama matters. Yeah, I'm like that with the Walking. Yeah, I've heard that same math on the Walking Dead, and I'm like, you just made up all those numbers. All those numbers depend on the numbers you just made up, and zombies are fictional. So it's like there's no you could make up completely different numbers.
Right. And it doesn't really matter. Where do the zombies come from? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
How many zombies are left? It doesn't matter. There are always more zombies.
And I've always heard people say, well, the zombies should all die out since they didn't get brain. I'm like, come on. The zombies just live. They're zombies. There's no, whatever rules you want to make up, you can make up.
Oh, yeah. Well, the other one. Well, what about rigor mortis?
Yeah. Zombie movies, people who are fans of zombie movies love rules, I've noticed. More than any other subgenre of horror. Zombie movie fans love the rules of zombie movies.
Interesting.
Think of it, they're the one horror genre that comes with a set of rules all the time.
Now, do these people get pissed off at the original incarnation of the zombie, which has nothing to do with the walkers that came from Night of the Living Dead? I'm talking like Haitian voodoo zombies.
Yeah, I just think they're not interested in those. They're no fun. There's no fun zombie movies.
Everything that we know about, that we have about modern zombies is completely made up. The notion of zombies in African religions was that they weren't dead brought back to life. They were living dead. They were alive, but their minds were dead. It's like their minds were enslaved so that they could do nothing but work, because they would have no wants, no needs, no desires. Right. In essence, being dead while being alive.
Right. Let's see. The next one I got was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. Mm-hmm. Second issue, $9 comic. The flashbacks all have muted black plates.
That's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of money. It's double. It's 40 pages. It's bigger than your average comic. This was a little bit bigger. Mm. This was really a commitment to me buying this one because I've never bought the Turtles before. Like I said, I bought 4 issues of the Turtles in the 80s, and that was it. Right. But I was like, you know what? I kind of liked the story. This is the story that supposedly they came up with in the 80s. It was as the last Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story, and they finally decided they wanted to do it. And that's what it is. In the beginning of this, 3 of the turtles are already dead, and you don't even know which turtle is alive. I can't even remember which turtle is alive. That's how much I know about the Turtles, and I read this issue. And then they showed they flashed back to the first turtle dying too, how he died. And so, but it's well done. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, I've never really, I was just looking, I have one of the later printings of issue 2 of the image of the Turtles from the 80s. I had 3 of the micro series Turtles from the 80s, and that's all the Turtles I ever bought.
Yeah, so the only ones I got were the ones that Rick Vetch did.
Never even got those.
Yeah, and Mark Martin, which was another cartoonist, used to work for Comic Buyer's Guide, and later on in life he really went off the deep end. But those I only bought 4 issues total.
Nice cover on this one too. It's funny. I don't think I actually looked at this cover because you get stuff in your pull list. You just look at that turtle. Oh, that's that. And that's that. And sometimes I don't look at the covers till a week later. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh yeah, right. That's not bad. That's kind of funny. Don't look at them.
Didn't Richard Corbin do some Turtles covers?
I'm told he did. He did some Turtles. Even I think he may have done some.
Okay, I didn't realize he did tears. I knew he did.
I think someone mentioned that once on this show. I like I said, I know so little about the Turtles. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I've never picked up the Turtles, so I pretty besides those 5 issues I got in 1987.
I was always a bigger fan of the fuzzy animal that had a katana. So.
Who is that? Boris the Bear? You mentioned
Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh, yes, Usagi Yojimbo. There you go. I don't think of him as fuzzy. I think of him as furry, maybe. But yeah,
fuzzy, furry.
Yeah,
there's hair involved there somewhere.
And then the last comic I got was a facsimile edition of The Black Knight.
Oh, yeah.
I never expected to see this. I mean, I've never even seen this reprinted anywhere.
Well, there's a Masterworks which reprints the Black Knight and Yellow Claw, the 50s.
And the Black Knight and who?
Yellow Claw.
Ah, okay. Must be an Agents of Atlas reprint or something.
No, it was before that. I think or maybe it was around the same time, I guess. But I'm glad I didn't buy it. I should have bought it at the time. at the time I didn't have money for hardcovers because for the price of a hardcover I could buy 2 trades. But that was the only way you could get that, and I missed out. The only Black Knight story I read was published in the Golden Age of Marvel trade paperback, which I bought almost 2 decades ago. And that's when I first saw Joe Manilli art, and oh man, this guy's amazing. Well, come on, it's one of those names that disappears down the memory hole, and people don't know it because it didn't work on the famous superheroes.
Right. I first saw his name in the reprints of the Marvel Westerns in the early 70s. The Two Gun Kid, Kid Colt, Rawhide Kid. They used to reprint some of his work from the 50s. And I always liked it. I was like, wow, this guy's solid. Then I don't think it was until the 90s I found out who he was in his story, which always made me sad. Because he died in like 57 or something, 1957. And it especially affected me because he died on a Jersey Transit train. And for some reason, I have a fear of dying while commuting. Well, it's not actually a fear. It's just I don't want to die when I'm commuting. I don't know why, but it's like that would seem like the worst death, to die while you're commuting. Because
you have a train.
I don't know how much commuting you guys have done, but it's just such a waste of time.
Not much.
And to die when you're commuting is just like, what a waste of time that was. Even my last hours, I'm wasted time. But he
who's the artist on the Black Knight?
Joe Manilli.
Okay, so gotcha.
Yeah, that's him. And he was like one of Stan's go-to guys in the 50s, they say.
You know the story that Kirby walked into the office and Stan was crying because they were closing down Marvel. And Stan said, well, I don't remember crying. If Kirby saw Stan crying, it might be because he had just found out that Manilli had died. Right. Because it was Manilli dies and Kirby comes back the next week and starts working immediately. Right. Because now there's an opening. He had just been fired from Challengers. He was looking for a job. He goes back to Marvel, and Manilli just died. So that's the only possibility that story is true, is that it happened in that time frame.
We have a visitor from Germany.
Yeah, greetings from Germany. And one of and Manilli was coming home from like a cocktail party. Like just a gathering that people were having around the office or something, and he had lost his glasses earlier in the week or something, so he didn't have his glasses on them. Right. And they think he may have stepped out as the train was moving, stepped out between the cars to have a smoke or something, get some air, and he somehow fell off the train. It's just like
he was only 32.
He did seem to change drawing. Like this stuff is so different from his Western stuff. This is much more Prince Valiant.
Yeah, holding that up, I could tell that he had looked at Hal Foster.
Yeah, and a lot of it, and really well and intricately drawn, and kind of read a little Prince Valiant-ish.
Okay.
Doesn't know anything about comics. Well,
sometimes
I'm glad you like this thing anyway. If you could watch any creator, living or not, work on a book, what would it be?
I've already done it. Okay, it was Michael Kaluta.
That's funny because I'm not. I've mentioned my friend Ed before, who always has. He loves to watch. He's an artist too. Worked with him in comics and went to school with him.
Right.
And he always thinks there's some secret that if he can just see this person work, the secret will be revealed to him, even though he knows it's not true. But somehow in his mind, he still believes it. And I know that watching somebody work doesn't really, that you have to talk to them more than watch.
It is very interesting to watch people work, because I've seen Michael draw. I've seen Charles Vest draw.
But I generally find it, having spent a lot of hours at the drawing board myself, I generally find it pretty boring to watch people work. The only time it's really interesting is when they turn it into a performance. There's people who, can turn their drawing, but that's not really the same thing.
Yeah, and I don't like to watch people draw because I don't like people watching over my shoulder when I'm writing. So yeah, I know not to watch people doing creative work while they're doing it, especially because as I say, it gets pretty boring. I mean, the person doing it stops, looks at something, gets up, goes get a glass of water, gets back in. They don't get flashes of inspiration. It's just what they're doing now. It's
the funny thing you just said there, when Steve Rude does his live streams, he talks constantly during the whole thing. He's talking about anything from the technique he's using to the materials he's using to an artist that he likes, or for whatever his stream of consciousness is. It's kind of interesting to watch that, just to hear what he's talking about.
This just popped into my mind. This is what you want to see. You want to see them teach in terms of, like, when we used to be back in the 90s in the Marvel bullpen, especially my friend Ed, he used to ask everyone for a critique. And John Romita would throw a piece of tracing paper over Ed's drawing and then just show him the stuff he did wrong and how to do it. That's fascinating to watch. That's like a whole that's a whole different thing. But that's like,
sure.
If you ever get a chance to watch, a master artist show someone, younger how to do it,
it was interesting.
That's good stuff.
At Heroes Con, they'll have artists that will get up on. They have a stage in the artist alley section, and sometimes they'll work live. And I was watching about 3 or 4 years ago. I was watching Craig Hamilton, and he did a painting of Storm from the X-Men.
Yeah.
And based it on a certain actress, and I can't remember what her name was. But just watching him do that was very interesting, because he very meticulous about what he did. It was neat to watch.
Like those ASMR live drawings I did a few years ago. They're fun to watch because you can see something appear before your eyes. Well, that's a very specific type of drawing. That's like, I don't usually work that way. That drawing works well for performance.
Sure.
And Joe Maneely did Captain Marvel Jr.? Is that who he's referring to? Because I don't know that. I know Mac Raboy did Captain Marvel Jr., but I don't know that much Captain Marvel Jr.
The only Mac Raboy I really know is when he filled in on the Flash Gordon strip.
He did Captain Marvel Jr. too for a while. I know because my friend Ed is a big fan of Mac Raboy's Captain Marvel.
What David brought up about Mobius is just that's the word I'm looking for. Anything that has to do with Mobius is interesting to me. If he read out a phone book to me, it would be interesting.
Right.
Mobius was very, very meticulous about what he put on a page, and you'd probably be watching him for hours on the same panel.
Right. Paul Pope's stuff looks pretty spontaneous the way he works. I can imagine his stuff is pretty interesting to watch. Linda Barry, I'm a huge Linda Barry fan. I've never seen her work. I used to buy the Village Voice just to get Linda Barry's cartoon. And I used to clip them out. Now I've got a couple of books of it. Finally.
Paulo was talking about Paul Pope being very meticulous.
About Mobius
see how meticulous some people can be, but they can still be fast. William Stout draws fairly fast. Mark Schultz is about as meticulous as you will ever see any artist anywhere, but he does not draw fast.
Sergio Aragonés could put on a show.
Oh my God!
He
did. He is a force of nature.
He was on like That's Incredible or something, drawing their ins and outs live.
Yeah, I mean, you just watch. Have you ever watched any of the all the panels that they have at San Diego where they do the quick draws, which usually like Sergio and sometimes Scott draw, and then like a third artist or whatever. Sergio like complete 3 different drawings before the other guys get finished with their first one.
That's a talent. That's like a specific talent to be able to put on a show like that.
It's amazing. Oh, Sergio just amazes me.
I have no idea what those old Tic-O-Tac videos are.
He is talking about a series of videos that were filmed in France in the early 70s.
Okay.
There's Mobius and Neil Adams. And was it John Romita?
I was just watching that Pablo Picasso one from the 50s. That one's really famous, where he's painting on glass and they're filming him from the other side.
Right. And it seems like there was another one that
Comic Crack likes those.
I think there was another one like that. I think he was talking about that series had Jeff Jones was in it as well.
Yeah.
A Kubert. Okay.
I imagine he's another way. If their process is kind of loose and flowing and throwing paint around, that's more interesting than meticulous drawing.
Bill Sienkiewicz is a really intelligent guy too. He knows what he's doing.
He confused Manili and Mac Raboy. I didn't realize Mac Raboy died young, but I never thought about it before. You're right. He wasn't around that long, because I don't know what he did after Captain Marvel Jr.
No, Manili should be pretty easy to recognize if you know what you're looking for, because even if you haven't seen his interior work, he did most of the covers throughout the 1950s for the westerns and the horror science fiction books at Marvel.
Yeah, I'm used to his western style. Which in the 50s was very much like Kirby's style in terms of its solidity. Both of them drew very solid figures.
Right.
I recognized that even when I was a kid. Not Kirby's 70s style, but more along the lines of Kirby's. Like if you were to see a Joe Manili 50s Western and a Kirby 50s Western, they shared some traits.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know Linda Barry had done a ton of teaching in recent years. She won a MacArthur Genius Grant, too, a couple of years ago. Yeah. Everyone says nice things about Sergio Aragonés.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to meet Sergio at a convention, he's well worth it, and he tells the best stories.
Okay, I'm going to have to look up those Flash Gordon strips. Is what was that the last thing Mac Raboy did? Was those Flash Gordon strips?
Last thing or not? I have... who was it? It was Kitchen Sink, I think, did like 3 volumes of just Mac Raboy Flash Gordon material, and I have 2 of the 3.
I thought McMahon would be a treat. Yeah. I don't get that one.
Now, when I said Mobius was meticulous, watching Drouillet draw, now that thing is packed full of detail.
Yeah. Well, detail is the most boring thing to watch someone draw. Because it's just most of the time it's just little tick marks. It's not always the detail is all worked out in the very basic drawing, and everything else is just window dressing. So it's a lot of little.
It's only at the end that you notice the end, that you see the end product and say, "Man, this is art."
Yeah.
Imagine. Are you familiar with Virgil Finlay, the artist?
The what?
No.
Okay, he was a science fiction artist. Did a lot of pulp. Science fiction covers, interiors.
I think you've mentioned him before. That's where I know the name from. But
he did a lot of stippling.
Yeah.
I would imagine that would be the most boring thing in the world. Just
it is.
Tiny
and also
dots, one after the other.
Stippling is also considered an amateur technique. Some guys can do it well.
Yeah.
The high-end guys who made a living at it are really good at it. Right. But the reason stippling is considered an amateur technique is because you can make tons and tons of mistakes. If you have to define something with one line, you really have to know what you're doing. If you're building something up through stippling, you don't have to know what you're doing. It's
depending on the artist. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, but there are some guys I've seen do stippling really well, like Drew Friedman did a lot of stippling in his early days.
Okay.
Oh, it's tack-oo-tack, not tick-oo-tack. Okay. But yeah, usually, and it takes so much. Stippling is so much about the time it takes to stipple and not about learning drawing. They now have pens that automatically stipple.
Oh, wow.
Which you just hold it up and it makes marks. Gotcha. And you also can use, filters and brushes digitally now.
Oh, sure, digitally, yeah,
like that.
World, right?
So
I can imagine there's some probably working stippling back in the 40s, and if they could go forward in time and see what you could do digitally, like damn it. Is this when I needed it? You know?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. What's in the comic shop news, which isn't much. It's more Berserker stuff. Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Which I really don't. I mean, I might pick up the first issue just if I got nothing else to pick up that week, and I know my comic shop's gonna have a ton of them in. I might pick it up to check it out because I like Matt Kindt. I generally like Matt Kindt's writing, so I can see myself liking whatever this is. But the more interesting thing I saw that this week is they're putting out new versions of the Marvel Masterworks. Soft cover, 6x9. The manga version of, well, it's not for us.
No,
it's to get the younger folk into Marvel Comics. So it's like
I am not against it.
Yeah, I'm not against it either. I mean, I'm not going to buy it. It's not for me. But anything that gets young, and it's each one's going to have. They're starting out with Spider-Man 1 through 10, Fantastic Four 1 through 10, X-Men 1 through 10. $16 list price.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, it says right here in 6x9 format, so popular with younger readers today. So I think that's a good idea. I hope they keep them in print, and younger people can discover these early stories for cheap in a format they like. That's why I like it. It's not for me. I like big rather than small. I got to wear reading glasses.
I agree. Yeah, once I start getting artist editions, I'm like, there's no going back. Yeah.
Art Adams said the year he did on Long Shot, the year. Hopefully they'll carry them at Walmart and such. Yeah. I hope. Do you guys remember? I really thought this was a good idea, but they pulled it off terribly. Maybe 10 years ago now, Marvel put out a series of like hardcover year one books. And they were supposedly for new readers. I bought one of them. I bought just to see, because to me the idea, if you want to bring in new younger readers with like a year one book, because the biggest problem you have with new readers is someone sees the X-Men movie, they like the X-Men, and they say, "Oh, I want to read some X-Men. What should I read?" I got no answer for them.
Right.
Because I know that if I were to pick up a random X-Men book, I'd be like, what the heck is going on here? And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. So they made these year one books. And to me, the idea of it, I don't know if this was their idea, was it could be the first, and they all said volume one. It could be the first volume. And they were like redoing the origins with modern artists in writing. Which, once again, I can understand because it's tough to give, some 15-year-old who wants to read a comic from 1961 to read.
Yeah.
I think those are actually better for 9-year-olds. I think if you were to hand 15-year-olds this, they'd probably be disinterested. But if you were to hand 9-year-olds this, they might be more interested. So they made these ones, and I was like, well, that's a good idea. That way, if somebody says, what X-Men can I read? You hand them that one, and it gives you the sort of origin of the X-Men. If not, it sets everything up for you in the story.
Right.
But then one I picked up and read was it threw you in the middle. It was it depended on you knowing all these relationships of the X-Men.
It kind of defeats the purpose of the concept to begin with.
Yeah, and they only made 4 or 5 of them, and they just went out of print, and nobody cared about them.
Gotcha.
And it was just catch you later, Comic Crack.
See you, Terrence.
Early details where he did a long shot was him just hiding all of his mistakes. Yeah, that's what detail does a lot of the time. Is it's hiding the mistake. It's tougher to strip things down than to add detail. Yeah, X-Men Essentials is pretty damn good. But it's like which X-Men essentials would you hand a 15-year-old?
Depends on the 15-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. But the new X-Men stuff, the Jim Lee stuff, the Cockrum stuff, the Burn, I don't know. And it's in black and white. Will he like it in black and white? No, it'd be Epic collections now, so it'll be in color at least.
I was like 7 or 8 when I first saw Kirby and Steranko, because it was Kirby Eternals, and they were still running some old Shield stories. But those were published in the 80s here, I read them and I didn't think anything of them. But about a year later, we had our own version of the Origins and Son of Origins trades. They came out as special pocket editions, 160 pages for issues number 100 of the 2 main Brazilian titles. And that's when I actually saw the Origins for the first time. And I was 9, and I was looking at the art Kirby Ditko, and this looks old.
Yeah.
Compared to Mike Zeck and John Byrne and Frank Miller,
right?
This looked old. So I'm not sure if 9-year-olds will actually like seeing the originals now, because even now I'm old.
Right.
So I'm you notice, and so maybe you do need to do new versions with new art and modern coloring. Because you've noticed how modern cartoons for little kids are all 3D. Nobody does drawn animation anymore. If you show traditional animation, even from the 80s and 90s, to kids who are currently 6 or 7, they're going to look at it and say, "This is old."
Right.
From what they've been exposed to up until that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope they like it. But I'm not, like I said, I think they have a better chance of liking it, being that it's cheap. There's 10 issues. It's in color and in that 6x9 format that they're used to. Regarding hiding details, Jay Lee, who said that one of the toughest things he ever had to draw was his redesign of the General Mills cereal monsters because he couldn't add details. Yeah.
Speaking of, when there is a book coming out in a couple months, it's Mike Mignola's Lockdown Sketchbook, and he redesigned some of the General Mills cereal monsters, and they're really, really funny.
Right.
Just seeing Mike Mignola doing these Mignola sketches of Frankenberry and whatever's pretty amazing.
Some guys are really good at that. David Aha.
He's extremely good at that kind of thing.
Mignola is. David Aha is another one who's very good at stripping stuff down to its graphic design essentials, yet still illustrating. I was just looking at all his Scarlet Witch covers, which are just really nice designs and illustrations. So.
And when you look at some of the older guys and what they're doing now, John Byrne, for example, there are a lot of people saying, "Oh, I like that they like John Byrne's old artwork better."
Right.
I can understand that, but it's not. John Byrne really is doing more with less nowadays in his 60s than he was doing 40 years ago on the X-Men.
Have you seen his the series he's been doing just for fun?
Yeah.
The X-Men, that stuff's pretty well drawn. I mean, he's doing a nice job with that. I only read like 1 or 2 issues just because it didn't interest me, but I have them all as I saved them all as comic files, CBRs, just in case I wanted to look at them. But yeah, really, he's just kind of doing it. He's done 17 issues of an X-Men comic that as fan art that he's not even getting paid for. I don't know why Marvel isn't paying him to do that. That baffles me.
He's burned too many bridges.
Still, no, he hasn't.
There is a market. I agree. There's a market out there. It's not as big as
I know, but I'm saying I think they said CB Cebulski tried to work out something with him, but it didn't work out. I'm like, come on. How can you not? I just think that's a missed opportunity for Marvel.
I know of that he's actually gotten published in the past few years is Star Trek material from IDW.
Yeah. Well, he's got enough money to retire.
No, he had his own series at IDW, and he had a fake James Bond that he came up with, which now I bought a trade of that, and that's how I always saw his new art. He had something called Trio, some science fiction stuff.
Scissors. That was a while ago now, though. That was a decade ago.
Was it now?
It's a long time ago, yeah. But nobody bought him was the problem.
Yeah.
So I guess he figures if no one's buying it, he may as well do whatever he wants for free. Because like I said, he's got enough money.
That's one of the things. I'd be interested to see how this Monsters project that Barry Windsor Smith is doing.
Oh, yeah.
See how it does, because when he did Huck the Archer and Armstrong and the New Gods and the Storytellers titles, he blamed Dark Horse for not what's the word I'm looking for? For not
promoting
very well promoting them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did the exact same thing at Fantagraphics when they didn't sell well there either.
Yeah.
So if Monsters doesn't do well, I'd be interested to see what his reaction is.
I can remember reading that years ago, the same thing with him saying that, but the person was saying the reason that Barry Windsor Smith's Storytellers didn't sell was the format. Comic fans generally don't like things out of format, and that was really out of format. And there's a lot of comic fans.
That's exactly why I liked it.
Me too. Me too.
Little, 6 by 9, pamphlet. I don't care. If it's
but you have to see we're a minority.
I know.
And let's just say that there's those of us who like the big format. And then there's another whole section of comic book fans who don't like formats. Then there's another thing I didn't realize too was
retailers
those are very tough to get and keep in mint condition. So the section of comic fans who like to buy and get and keep their stuff in perfect condition won't buy them either. So that's a whole big chunk of comic fans you're eliminating. So I think that was a problem.
Ooh, yeah.
That's just the way life is, though. If you're going to go for a weird format, you're only going to get the weirdos like us who like weird formats.
There you go. Give me more weirdo books. Speaking of weirdo books, I pre-ordered a book from Last Gasp. It's called Slow Death, and I just pre-ordered that yesterday.
Somebody just messaged me that book too. I'm gonna have to someone on Instagram. I think one of the authors of it was like, "Oh, you order this book." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I haven't ordered it yet, but I looked.
William Stout did the cover in one of the stories, so I had to buy it.
Yeah,
but it's got a lot of some other big names in it too, as well.
Yeah. What else did I just see today? There's something else caught my eye. Oh, did you see Todd McFarlane's announcement?
I saw it, but I don't care. It doesn't interest me at all.
I just like that he's excited about
it. I have nothing against it. It's just not for me.
I just think Todd McFarlane being excited about comics is good for comics.
Probably. Yeah.
It would have been better if he was excited about comics 10 years ago, because now it's 30 years since he was relevant, and 10 years ago it was still 20.
Well, his Spawn has been the best-selling comic of the last few months. So he's actually relevant again. So he picked a good time to do it again. Remember, I remember reading the numbers a month or two ago and being amazed at how many copies Spawn is selling all of a sudden. And he said it went up 3 or 4 times over COVID for some reason.
Yeah.
But I just like, for those of you who haven't heard the announcement, he's coming out with 3 new series. There's going to be, you can buy a Spawn comic a month. The regular Spawn, then they're going to have King Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, and one sort of Spawn team up. And he announced a whole bunch of people who are going to do it. And he says, this is his plan for the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I'm just happy he's excited about comics and publishing something more than one, because I think he actually will stick. He has stuck to Spawn all these. I mean, he's kept Spawn in print all these years with a new issue every month when he didn't have to. So I actually have been buying Spawn lately. I think the odds of me buying 4 Spawn books is not very high. But if he also keeps them, Spawn is the last $2.99 book. So if the others come out at $2.99, maybe.
Well, you would at least got to try the Gunslinger Spawn.
Yeah. There was an editor who worked at Marvel who recalls handling. Yeah. Just a bonus check. Right. He is one of the winners in comics. Like George Perez, too. George Perez retired, when was it? Just last year, the year before. And he was like, don't worry about me. I made plenty of money.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So though most everybody in comics didn't, John Byrne is certainly one of the winners who did, make plenty of money. He's crazy to get into TV. Is that McFarlane? Yeah, he's got more. I think Byrne said he earned more doing some art for Toy Biz Alpha Flight figure packing than, yeah.
That does happen.
That's for you would make more money. I can remember when, do you remember all the video game magazines in the 90s? Did you guys buy any of those?
I didn't buy them, but there was a whole bunch of them out on the newsstands, like Nintendo.
Right.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there was a period from I don't even know when it was, 92 to 95, when all the hot comic book artists were doing video game magazine covers.
That I don't remember. But yeah.
And that's because a comic book cover they'd earn a few $100s for. A magazine cover they'd earn $2,000 for.
Right.
And all these magazine editors discovered they could hire the hottest guys real easy because they paid a lot more than comic books.
Yeah.
McFarlane has actually won an Emmy Award for directing a music video. Wow. Oh, that's right. I remember him directing somebody's video years ago. Dean Haspiel has an Emmy Award, too. For that show he did, what I mentioned a few weeks ago, where I think he designed the intro title sequence for, was based all on, it was all his artwork, because the one character was based on him in that. So yeah, he has an Emmy Award, too. That HBO show that I can't remember the name of, but was a good show. What was the name of that? Jonathan Ames, was that the writer of it? Yeah. That's the writer Dean works with. I got something over there of his. What was the name of that show? Well, I won't remember. I won't remember.
No, Rob, we're Timless tonight. We don't know what the Tim status is.
Yeah, he had a work thing going on and wasn't sure if he could show up or not. And we never heard from him all day.
It's
so I guess
possible he could be without power. There's a lot of, in the area where we live, there's a lot of power outages going on. So that, who knows? Not really sure.
I've got high tension wires running through my backyard.
To track Godzilla, by the way.
Yes. And I did. We must have during Superstorm Sandy. Like 3 or 4 houses down on the other side. There's some, I don't know what kind of electrical equipment it is. Wasn't one of the towers attached to the high tension wires. All of a sudden, it was like the 4th of July out there.
Yeah.
It was like, what the heck happened? But that power went out. But they had that thing must have been important because they had it up and running in half an hour. Right in the middle of Superstorm Sandy. So I was like, whoa, good job there, fellas.
Yeah, if there's a transformer or something that supplies power to like hospitals or police stations, things like that, it usually gets repaired first.
Yeah. There is a hospital right down there, too. Could have been that.
Joel Adams. Now, I know there's a Spider Adams. Are they brothers or are they the same person?
I didn't know there was a Spider Adams. I know there's a Joel Adams.
Yeah. I guess between the two of us, we know the whole family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know once again my friend Ed. I'm going to mention again. He actually has worked with Joel Adams before, so he's mentioned that. So that's how I know his name. Otherwise, I might not. I've never met Neil Adams.
I met him at HeroesCon a few years ago. Me and Tim actually both met him, and he was trying really, really hard to push the Batman Odyssey book. And we're being nice, you know. It just doesn't interest me, you know.
Over the years, I've heard many people talk about that book, about how it's not very good, and I've always kind of wanted to read it in a train wrek sort of way, but I've never liked reading
the app description. Yeah, it's a train wreck kind of thing. It's like,
well, Cavern speculation. Coincidentally, the hottest books right now are the ones I got on the. Yeah, there we go. There's our parody show. Does Scott Connor have his own channel?
I have a channel, but I don't have any content on it other than just some live concert footage I filmed once. That's about it.
Do you post videos anymore, Paolo? I don't think I've seen anything pop up from you.
Not for a year.
Oh, okay.
I did something around April, May last year during the first lockdown stage. There were a few people doing lockdown videos, and I thought I'd do one and show off stuff for the foreign comics collectors.
Oh, okay.
Ended up doing 3 videos in a week, but that was it. Before that, it was in October, November during our Amadora Festival. But I haven't done anything in a while, and I don't know when I want to do it. I had an idea for a video 2 years ago, but I ended up not doing a video. It was about the Squadron Supreme.
Ah, okay. Yeah, my comic haul video is just kind of like part of my process now.
Mm-hmm.
Come over to the comic shop, eat lunch, then knock out a video. You know, it doesn't take that long, a comic haul video.
Right.
Post it up, and I've shown off my comics for the week.
Yeah, and you only went through 4 comics, so
yeah,
you can talk about them for a little.
Yeah. It's not show my cover that I keep out. For the week, maybe something I read that week, 10, 15-minute video. It's easy peasy. But yeah, being that I can't remember the last time I didn't make a video during the week. I think I was sick like 5 years ago and didn't get to go to the comic shop and didn't make a video. So maybe in the last 6 years, I've only missed 1 week.
It's pretty good long run there.
Yeah. Wish there was a little more excitement, maybe, or good excitement, not bad excitement. Make me miss a week or two. Flew off to Vegas because I won $1 million. I don't know.
There you go. $1 million for a lot of comics.
Yeah, it's funny. I still get excited when I get usually it's on Saturday morning, I get the final order cutoff email. And I'm always like, ooh, cool. Let's see what's in the final order cutoff from my comic shop. Then Saturday evening, I get the what's arriving for you in the comic shop this week email. And I'm telling you, I still get excited with each one. I'm like, oh, let me see. Oh, what am I getting? That one and that one and that.
Yeah, I remember when I was still buying new comics, I'd go through the previews catalog and make a list of everything I wanted. Then you calculate the total, and then you figure out what the taxes are. Then you figure out what your discount was based on how much you ordered. You tally it all up and email it off.
I was never a previews guy. I never looked through previews a whole lot.
Every single month I look. I still look through it now just to see what's coming out that I can't afford anymore.
Yeah, I don't. Never. I mean, if the few times I did look through previews, I found tons of stuff, but I never ordered from it.
I'm finding less and I mean, maybe I'm just getting older or whatever, but like every month now, I'm finding less and less than what I used to find.
No, my total has held steady for years and years now. Since about 2012, I've been able to find as many good new comics as I want. None of them are Marvel and DC, but
exactly.
that I like the indie stuff, so that's what I go for.
Right.
If you don't like the indie stuff, I'm afraid my pull list is 2000 AD in heavy metal. Oh, in the late 90s, I used to have a subscription to heavy metal because it was dirt cheap, but I haven't gotten it since then.
I'd be interested to see how it's done after Grant Morrison was the editor. And I don't think he is now, but
No.
I'd be interested to see what they've done with it lately.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
I have not looked at it.
2000.
I don't know why.
Never really read.
The Human Fly just popped into my head. Did you guys ever read that series?
Nope.
You talking about the Human Fly from what was it?
Marvel.
Huh?
Comic Community Send channel? No, I don't remember that one at all.
No, never heard of it.
What year was that around? Jumped back on. Do you enjoy that? Are you enjoying heavy metal? So like I said, I haven't read it. The Human Fly is a not very good comic that I have a lot of nostalgia for.
Who's the publisher?
Marvel. In the late 70s.
The Human Fly. I'm thinking about. I was thinking it was like Charlton or something like that.
No, you didn't know the Marvel Human Fly? Only about 17 issues. Lee Elias did a lot of them. An old time Golden Age comic name.
It's not ringing any bells. I may recognize a cover if I saw it.
Red and white.
Do you remember the Daredevil guy who was like an Evel Knievel wannabe, and he filmed himself flying outside of a plane of a commercial airliner?
No, I don't remember that at all.
No, there are videos on YouTube. You can look up Human Fly and you find a guy, and the guy licensed his image to Marvel Comics to make a comic. Less than 4 years.
And the whole idea too was he was in an accident and broke every bone in his body, and the doctors told him he would never walk again.
No.
But he proved them wrong by not only walking again, but becoming this escape artist Daredevil. And nobody knew who he really was because he wore a mask. And
we still don't know. Even the guy who worked with him didn't know.
And it was not a very, very good. It was mediocre Marvel 70s comics. But it was one of the few comics I was able to pick up with issue number 1. Because there weren't a ton of issue number 1s in the late 70s. I think it came out in 77.
Yeah.
And I just loved it that I could buy a comic from issue 1 because that just never happened. All the comics I had were, older, of course. So it was kind of like, so I still like the Human, and when it was canceled, I was like, even though it was not my favorite comic.
Right.
Because it was only semi-superhero. I used to love getting those prepackaged comics or mystery bag comics, but now I can't do it in fear of getting nothing but unsold Captain Marvel and Holly. Oh, have you seen those? I've seen like some of the New York Warriors. Erod does some of those. He does the expensive ones too. Those mystery boxes that people sell, for $50 to $500. Where, if you buy a $500 one and there's going to be a slab in there and supposedly like $600 worth of comics for your $500. I'm like, I could
can't
not
bring myself to do that.
I love a mystery, but I'm like, I just can't do it.
No, I mean, if it's like, $10, grab bag or whatever, that's one thing, but $500, no.
No. I'm just like, and the cheaper ones are all full of unsold Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel and Harley Quinn issues.
No.
Oh, that was the okay. Tim has mentioned that before.
Yeah, I wasn't even watching any comics related videos in 2012. So
yeah, I don't know if I was or not. Because I was watching videos, but I didn't get the idea to make my own videos, I think, until around 2014 and 15. but I might not have had the comic stuff on. It was harder to make videos in those days.
Well, I'm sure, especially if you had low speed internet, your upload time were ridiculous.
To use my young brain, I think ROM issues. I mean, yes. But that's how it is. Back in those days, you just jumped on issues. Like I see so many comics fans these days say, "Oh, well, I want to get all the issues before I start reading it." And I'm not like that just because I grew up in the 70s and every comic was at issue 157. Right. So it's like you just jumped on. If that's where you jumped on, that's where you jumped on. So
it just goes to show you how much has changed, over the years.
Yeah.
Buying trends and publishing trends.
Comics are different now.
No.
A lot of stuff, it's best if you jump on the first issue. Not everything, of course, but most.
That's true.
Yeah. Bill Mantlo. Yeah. Matter of fact, now I'm going to go and get my issues of the Human Fly. Hold on. They're in the other room.
I think the one I was thinking about earlier was just the Fly, which I think was a Charlton hero.
The Fly was Archie comic.
Okay. And there's been several different characters that had either the word Fly or some variation of their names over the years.
The Fly has ideas that Kirby contributed some ideas to Archie's Fly, and then he recycled them for Spider-Man. And even though those that came out on the Fly, they were recycled from his 1950s attempted launch of the Steel Spider, still with Joe Simon.
There we go. There's issue 1 of the Human Fly. Recognize it, Scott?
No, not at all. Mm-mm.
Wow. Second issue had Ghost Rider in it.
Because, of course,
the stories in these, except that they were boring. But nice covers. Cockrum and Sinnott cover.
Yeah. No, I don't recognize a single one of those.
Let me make these a little bigger.
Yeah, you put some Cockrum covers and people will buy it. Then they open the book and it's Lee Elias.
Yeah. Sal Buscema and Terry Austin. This one's unsigned, but I think it's Frank Robbins.
That one is Frank Robbins.
I think Frank Robbins. Here's another. I think he did some. I think Lee Elias and Frank Robbins did the interiors. There's another Frank Robbins. Let's open this one up quickly and see. This is Frank Robbins, Bill Mantlo writer.
So he was right on
There's a quick little Frank Robbins for you. But this was actually still better Frank Robbins than that Captain America Frank Robbins.
Yeah, I guess.
Human Fly versus a bear.
Why not?
Another Frank Robbins cover. Mayhem at the Metropolitan. Oh, this is a Byrne and Austin cover. Very nice Byrne Austin cover here.
Doesn't look like Byrne.
It's Byrne.
The lady's face looks like Byrne.
Yeah, he signed it. Yeah, the little kid down there looks like.
Yeah, of course. John Byrne could not draw children.
Yep. Not sure who this is. Might be Cockrum. Not 100% sure. Oh, was that a Lee Elias cover? That might be.
No idea.
That kind of looks like Frank Robbins.
Could be
Frank,
could be Frank Robbins. I don't know who's inking him then. Could be Frank Robbins too. There's Frank Robbins. I recognize this guy's face as a Frank Robbins face.
And the way that the legs have nothing to do with the rest of the body.
Yeah. The solid teeth. Those solid Frank Robbins. What was it? Lubers and McLeod. I wonder who Lubers is.
Lubers was another one of those 50s guys.
Yeah, he was?
Yeah.
I wonder if he did the inside.
I don't think so. I was kind of I was looking at him as a because I saw his name in a few of the '50s comics, and then I noticed it was on the cover, but I'm not taking down numbers for the cover art.
There's a Frank Robbins face for you.
Oh yeah,
Frank Robbins and Frank Springer. This one is. Don't know why Luber. Oh, this is this. Oh, this is the skiing human fly. I'm guessing this is a takeoff on the James Bond skiing scenes. Mm-hmm. More Lubers and McLeod again on this cover. A third Lubers and McLeod cover in a row. You know what? I don't even think I've ever heard the name Lubers before. I must have never noticed it. A fourth Lubers and McLeod in a row. Lubers. There's a guy I'm gonna have to look up.
Okay, Bob Lubers.
Don't know who did this one. There's no signature. The inks look rough. Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of look like Frank Miller a bit.
A little bit, maybe a little Klaus Janson, but those. Yeah, don't know. I'm gonna have to look that one up. Human Fly number 17. Who did that cover? Bob Layton cover. Not a very good one either. Oh, I think this is Rudy Nebre's last issue, issue 18. That looks like Rudy Nebre's inking.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of the most used poses on covers ever.
Mm-hmm. La Peta. Yeah, but that's the Human Fly.
No, I've never heard of the Human Fly before. That's a new one on me.
It's the epitome of mediocre 1970s Marvel, but it holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob Lubers worked on Amazing Man comics for Centaur in 1940. Where is he?
Wow.
That was Glansman. Ah, here it is. Riff Kincaid.
Riff Kincaid.
Riff
Man
Kincaid.
of War.
Detective name. Yeah.
Man of War comics number 1. Red Riley. Some pre-superhero stuff. Wings comics at Fiction House. 1943.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So he was an
Captain
early
Wings.
gold.
Yeah.
He was one of the first.
Mm-hmm. Let's move forward. Still at Fiction House in 1947. Working on airplane stories. Also Rangers comics here. Let's see now.
Tommy Bagley thinks he did mostly Romance and Archie ripoff comics, he thinks. But he did a lot of stuff, being that he started in 1940. Wow.
Yeah.
Fire Hair at Fiction House. He may have done something for... No, he didn't, because I was looking at it. I was looking at the credits. But if you had picked another one of those jungle comics, we could have cut some of his art. Yeah, here it is. It's Kanga number 6.
Bob Lubers. Wow, I can't believe I never heard of him
the cover.
Can't believe I never heard of him, even though I have some covers by him on Human
I've
Fly.
heard of that name before. I just didn't know what he's done.
Yeah, he was at Pines in 1950 doing thrilling romances and popular romance.
If I heard his name before, I forgot it.
Let's move forward. 1951. Oh, his art was published in Portugal in 1952. Let me check. What was it? Sexton Blake, Beaugest, Italian Story, Tintin, It's in Wonderland. Oh, Tarzan Sundays. He was doing Tarzan Sundays in the early 50s.
Wow. I wonder what they look like.
That's interesting.
So that's why it disappears. It's not doing much. Here's a Rangers comics in 1952.
Bob Lubers, yeah.
Here's the from what I remember seeing it at Marvel. My Own Romance number 16 in 1951.
Ah.
That is also worked for Marvel, and he never worked for DC or Fawcett or Quality. He was mainly with Fiction House, and before that, Santor. Okay, here's something from United Feature, Tin Top Comics. No, Tin Top Comics must have something from Tarzan, maybe. Yeah, here it is. The Tarzan Daily. No, they don't know if it's Tarzan Daily. It's probably the Sunday. If it's Tip Top Comics, they were reprinting newspaper strips. And
Tommy says Lubers did a Millie the Model Type Girl strip called Torchy. Isn't that what Bill Ward did?
I was thinking Bill Ward worked on Torchy. Unless there were two different strips with the same name, but that's.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would think that's big coincidence.
I barely know what Torchy is. I just know it's associated with Bill Ward.
Right.
Yeah, most of the stuff that appears here after the 50s is reprints of his newspaper strip work. He did Secret Agent X9, wrote and drew it under the name Bob Lewis.
Bob Lou. I wonder how he ended up. I'll have to look at who the editor is on these. How did he end up?
What years he was working on Secret Agent X9?
It doesn't say here. This is the Swedish reprints. So they're coming out in Sweden in 1969 to 71. So might have been 66, 67, 68. So that was definitely before Al Williamson.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about, is when Al Williamson, because I have the Al Williamson X9 reprints.
Bob Hall was the editor. Is Bob Hall still alive?
Yeah. Yeah. Charlton 66 mentioned that he met him at a convention a couple of years ago.
I wonder if he knows how Bob Lubers. He must have been the one to hire him to do these covers. He's the editor. In those days, the editor's hired. We just wonder how Bob Lubers ended up doing covers for Marvel and The Human Fly in 78 or 79.
Don't know.
That's kind of interesting. Here we go. Wikipedia, in 2016, Lubers was introduced in the National Cartoonist Society Hall of Fame. Wow. Only 60. Is that that must be for his Tarzan stuff, right?
Yeah.
Wow. How come I haven't heard of him?
Man, his stuff got reprinted everywhere. I'm looking at credits for Denmark, Turkey, Norway.
That's all his Tarzan stuff?
Yeah, Tarzan and the Secret Agent X9.
Printed every country in the world almost.
Yeah, then then he reappears here in 1978 doing covers for Marvel. He did 5 issues of The Human Fly and one of the Defenders.
Wow. Which issue of the Defenders?
Number 61.
Okay.
He did finishes over Ed Hannigan.
Huh. Wow. It's amazing. And with all the, it's been like a golden age of comic strip reprint books over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So I wonder if anybody reprinted Bob Lubers' Tarzan. Because I haven't heard.
Yeah, just about US, not much stuff gets republished, no matter who does it, whether it was Russ Manning or Jesse Marsh or whoever,
You're more likely to find reprints of American adventure comic strips in foreign magazines, because they would just collect all the strips together and publish a cheap black and white book. That's how we had a bunch of those comics back in the day. But in the US, you didn't do that. The newspaper strips did not move to the comics unless it was one of those cheap fly-by-night operations that didn't last past issue number 2.
Yeah.
AC Comics reprinted a bunch of his stuff from the 40s in Femforce and Jungle Girls and Captain Wings. Yeah, and that's it.
Oh, he must have been doing Good Girl art there. Maybe that's the Torchy stuff, because that was Good Girl art, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, here's an NBM volume which reprints a couple of Bob Lubber strips.
Yeah, NBM
In
published
1997.
a lot of Tarzan reprints.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it.
Wow. Check them out.
Yeah, the guy simply disappeared and moved to the comic strips to make money. And nobody in the US knows who he is. And yet the Scandinavians have a bunch of comics featuring his artwork.
And he's in the Hall of Fame.
Uh-huh.
The Cartoonist Society. Wow. Yeah, Nova was another mediocre.
Very much so.
1970s Marvel book. I collected that one too, but I don't think I got the first. I think I got the first issue as like a back issue. So
I have the essential
because I wasn't able to buy it off the stands. It doesn't have the same nostalgia for me.
Right.
Well, it gets better by the end before it gets canceled. It actually does get better. But then Marv Wolfman has had to finish the storyline in Fantastic Four.
These are the exact issues I got in the late 70s, and they're pretty battered and dirty, and I have them in Mylar. I mean, these are the exact ones from my childhood.
Yeah.
Because who's going to buy low-grade copies of The Human Fly?
Jack Rosansky will, and then they sell them at double price. Years later.
Yeah, it is quite something that no one's. I mean, none of us here seem to know who he is. It's plenty. It's weird.
Well, I knew the name. I didn't realize that he'd worked on that much stuff.
Yeah. I'd like to go to a convention, but I never really went to that many cons to begin with. And cons are like social occasions for me because I go and talk to all the people who I've worked in.
Yeah, I'm in between jobs right now, so financially, no.
Yeah. And I usually go to cons with Bob Wyacek, and a matter of fact, I have to call. He's not doing well, so with his vision. So,
gotcha.
I don't know if he'll be going to any.
Yeah, usually me and Tim would go to Heroes Con down in Charlotte. That's always fun to go to.
Yeah, it's always fun to discover some artists you never heard of before.
Yeah,
that's true.
Now, Tommy, Dashiell Hammett didn't write for Secret Agent X9. He created Secret Agent X9.
Yeah. Wow.
I'll find a lot of British artists that I didn't know much about, and then do searches on them and discover like, wow, these guys did all this stuff.
There was actually, I remember reading it was a British comic. I think it was who's the writer? His name just flew out of my head. The guy who wrote The Punisher with Steve Dillon. Garth Ennis.
Yeah.
I think it was a Garth Ennis book a few years ago now. I don't even know, 5 years ago now, about Battler Britain or something that was like that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know which of the series it is. I think he did like a couple of Battle of Britain series.
There was a mini series that weren't published.
Yeah,
Battler Britain is a classic aviation comic from the 60s in the UK, who was very, very popular in Portugal because at the time we couldn't have foreign heroes. So he was given a Portuguese name and backstory. And he became Major Alvega.
Okay. but the reason I bring it up is because he had an editorial in there that he wrote that I found interesting when he was bemoaning the fact that the British didn't love and conserve all their old comics like the Americans did. Because the Americans have all these, lovely hardcovers and collections and soft covers so that people can read old comics from, the 60s or whatever. Right. And that just didn't exist in England. And he was a big Battler Britain fan, but he's like, there really weren't, archival collections of them.
Right.
And I found that I was like, I never realized that before.
They did have the tradition of doing annual hardcover annuals for series like
they had selected storylines.
Yeah,
you never have the complete set.
Right. True.
There was this British comic strip that was in the newspaper here, and I loved it. It came after the Phantom on the page. It was called Garth. It was
I've seen a few issues of that.
Yeah, that thing was amazing. And there are no complete collections of anything. Not of the 50s stuff, not of the 60s stuff. I remember Frank Bellamy was one of the art. It was created by Steve Dowling. The first, I remember Frank Bellamy still on a classic style. And then there was Martin Asbury. That guy did had a crazy drawing style. It was very, very psychedelic, and he'd even have minor nudity and sex scenes.
Was his art style kind of like Alex Nino's?
Well, yeah, we can say that, yeah.
Okay, I think I may know who you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And Enigma Vibration. That's why our show draws in so many viewers, because we talk about the artists that no one has ever heard of before.
But we have the right audience, because we have all these people who are now discovered Bob Lubbers, and they want to know more about him. We all do. This is amazing. We're all discovering Bob Lubbers together.
They're going to have a society called the Lubbers Lovers. So.
There's the compute hum. You need to have the complete Man from Atlantis that came out at the same time, just so you can add Pat McDuffie collection.
I remember.
I don't think I ever bought an issue of that.
Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually had a cameo in the Man from Atlantis TV show.
There's a recent reprint of the Hugo Pratt Battle of Britain comic.
Yeah, Hugo Pratt had a bunch of war stories, historical war stories that were published in Italian newspaper supplements, because they didn't have many magazines for their own artists. What they had was youth supplements inside the Sunday newspaper, directed at young readers, and they always had comic sections. Sometimes they take up the whole magazine. Sometimes it'd just be 1 or 2 pages. And Hugo Pratt worked on many of those before he became well known with Corto Maltese.
Wildstorm put out some Battler Britain? Is that
I have one of the issues of one of those series that they did.
Wow, and it just struck me too that this Human Fly, that was full of Golden Age art. Bob Lubbers is the third Golden Age artist working on that series, because Frank Robbins was, Lee Elias was. I mean, man, that Bob Hall must have been a fan of Golden Age artists or something and was looking to give them work. If he was the one hiring them.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And how would he know that they were available to work? Because if these guys are working in daily newspapers, they don't have time to go back to slumming in the comic books.
I think all their strips must have ended in the 70s. Because Frank Robbins was
I
mentioned it yesterday and can't think of the name. Johnny Hazard.
Johnny Hazard ended in 1977. Yes, I remember. I have a comic where they explain it started in 45, ended in 77.
So he must have gone right from that into doing Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
And Lee Elias, I don't know where they found him, because I don't remember him being. He's most famous for doing the Black Cat in the Golden Age. I think that's the name of the character, right? The Black Cat?
Yeah.
So I don't know where they found
Hardy,
that.
I believe.
Where they dug him up. I only recently picked up a bunch of Corto Maltese, still reading through them. They're fantastic. Yeah, I think I've only had one edition of Corto Maltese.
Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to read, but I've never gotten around to doing it.
Something gets reprinted all the time here. Every time they change his publisher, the new publisher is contractually bound to republish everything that already exists.
Right.
So it never runs out. The thing is, the people who already have the previous series will probably buy it again because it's their favorite comic. And since they prefer European comics, they don't have 200 issue run that they have to bother with. It's just those 20 or so. So they'll buy them again,
right?
So they can keep the story preserved for in a newer format that's just been printed, and they can put it back on the shelf.
collectors like to have a complete set that's got the same, trade dress on it too. So.
I didn't know IDW was reprinting Corto Maltese.
They are.
Yeah, they are. They were, and both the original Hugo Pratt material and the new stories that are written by the Black Set guy.
Yeah, I don't remember what his name is.
Do you guys have any favorite licensed comics?
Oh boy, there's a bunch of them over the years.
Being that I'm not a mainstream comic guy, I don't think I've bought many. I mean, I bought the Micronauts as a kid. I liked that.
Wrong, definitely wrong.
Kid, I liked that.
Transformers.
I read the Shogun Warriors back then.
I didn't like the
Godzilla.
I didn't like Shogun Warriors and Godzilla much, but I bought them occasionally.
Other than the Marvel stuff that came out in the mid 70s, we were just talking about, when Dark Horse started doing the Aliens comics, those were pretty good.
Okay, I didn't buy many of them. Have you bought any of the IDW licensed stuff?
I have some Transformer. No, I have Dreamwave Transformers, not IDW.
Afterlife stuff I can think of. No,
I have that Star Trek miniseries that Byrne did with Gary Seven, Assignment Earth.
Everyone seems to like Byrne's Star Trek stuff, even though it's not the most popular stuff out there for sure.
God, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's been so much. I mean, Star Trek, Star Wars.
And you guys ever collect the Star Wars comics?
I'm sorry?
Either of you guys ever collect the Star Wars comics?
Oh, I have a bunch of them. I have a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I was explaining this to
more because there's just so many and you can't keep up with them all.
Yeah, I was explaining this to a guy who collects Captain America from all over the world, and I was telling him he found it odd that one of those issues of the Brazilian Captain America had Indiana Jones on the cover. That was the first issue where Indiana Jones was becoming a backup strip. It was the Marvel series, and at the time they also started publishing Star Wars as a backup in the Incredible Hulk. Right. I did not like Star Wars on the Hulk, but I kind of liked Indiana Jones on Cap, and to me that was because since Indiana Jones is essentially a pulp character, everything that he does is the story of an adventure, and he keeps having adventures, and this is just another one. While in Star Wars, since it's an epic, the movie is the story, and everything else feels like a side quest, not important.
Right. The first two issues of Indiana Jones that John Byrne did were really good. That series could have been something special if he didn't leave it after two issues over summer.
I was far more impressed with what Dark Horse did with Indiana Jones than what Marvel did with it.
Well, that's because only the first two issues were ever any good.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. There's material written by David Michelinie, and Gene Day did a bunch of stories.
Yeah.
Oh, Gene Day did some work on that? I didn't even know that.
He did.
I'm a big Gene Day fan. Who drew the Dark Crystal comics? I remember that looking good too. I can't remember. It was like Brett Blevins or somebody. I can't even remember.
Which ones are we talking about?
The movie adaptation?
The movie adaptation I'm thinking of.
I don't remember.
I remember it looking good.
I don't remember.
I don't know how.
A long time. I don't know how old Pat Olaf is, but he's been around a while.
Wow, I did not know Pat Olaf was 71, but yeah.
Well, the first time I saw his art was on Nomad, and that came out in 1991, 1992. So he was already 40?
Wow.
He was already 40, 41?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he did get a late start. Everyone, I've never read more than an issue or two here or there, but everybody loves his Untold Tales of Spider-Man, him and Busiek. That gets high marks from just about everyone I know who's a big Spider-Man fan who likes those issues.
Yeah, but when I was reading The Defenders, who were also back up in Captain America in Brazil, Don Perlin was the artist. I had no idea that Perlin was a Golden Age artist.
Yeah,
I didn't know because it didn't feel like he had an old style, and he had an anchor, Art Nichols, who did a very, very good job complimenting his art. So I didn't know. I only found out in my 20s that Perlin was old.
Yeah. Well, he was when I first started working at Marvel in like 1990. He was assistant art director, and then he my first month I ever worked. He moved over to Valiant to be their art director. So I knew how old he was just because I saw him. Evan Dorkin's Bill and Ted was fun. So was Rick Parker, Beavis and Butthead. That was some decent stuff too in the 90s. Yeah, Steve Ditko drew the latter half of it. Yeah, that was not my favorite Steve Ditko stuff. That era, he was just kind of
not realizing at the time.
That era, he was just churning it out, kind of doing the job. I don't think it was the best era.
No, see, my introduction to Ditko was actually some of the backup stories he did for the Micronauts, and to be honest, those were not very good. Yeah, it was some of his worst work. Yeah.
Well, Brett Blevins and Vince Colletta for Dark Crystal. I'm amazed my brain remembered Brett Blevins, but I'm sure it wasn't the best inking we've ever seen.
They let Vince Colletta ink a movie adaptation?
Yeah. The movie adaptations had no prestige in those days, especially the ones that appeared in comics and not the fancy.
But they had a licensor who probably had some very specific requests that had to be accommodated.
Yeah.
I don't think all the licensors were the same. But I'm sure that's why they had Brett Blevins on it too. He was sort of a realistic kind of guy. But it just popped into my mind some good licensed work. I just had out a couple of years ago, Blade Runner adaptation by Al Williamson.
Yeah.
And a lot of those Marvel movie specials were pretty good. I mean, not great, but magazine size ones.
Even Xanadu?
I don't know if I ever.
That movie's terrible. I'm sorry.
But the Al Williamson Star Wars stuff was good. The movie adaptation.
Al Williamson's Empire Strikes Back was fantastic.
Yeah. And I think For Your Eyes Only, I think had a movie. I have them in my shelf. I forget which ones they were. I'm gonna have to pull those out and look at them someday. Because there were some decent movie because they were magazine sized. They were a little more well thought out sometimes. Like the Blade Runner one, which wasn't magazine sized, and nobody can remember why, was actually one of my favorites because Al Williamson did just such a nice job on it.
Has nothing to do with that, but when Jim Steranko did the Outland movie adaptation, it was published in Heavy Metal.
Yeah,
I wish somebody would do a compilation volume of it because it's never been published anywhere else. But his adaptation is better than the movie is.
Yeah, I've seen bits of that, but not the whole thing.
Yeah, it's.
And Jim Shooter once told the story of how he hired Howard Chaykin to do the James Bond For Your Eyes Only adaptation, and Howard Chaykin kept drawing James Bond as the idealized version of himself that he uses for American flag.
And everything else.
Yeah, and everything else. So they had to redraw everything again.
Yeah, I was never a huge fan of Don Perlin's stuff at Marvel in the 70s. In the early 80s too. He also did a lot of stuff on Defenders. When he moved to be art director of Valiant and draw some of their stuff, he always made sure he had a terrific inker on him who could do that's when he became popular. And I think he became popular because he had some inkers on him who really embellished his work. It didn't look old-fashioned at all when in that Valiant stuff he had.
Right.
There's an Al Williamson Empire T-shirt. Boba Fett, Outland Steranko, good stuff, all of it. Yeah, I really enjoyed those Marvel magazines from the late 70s, early 80s when they were Bizarre Adventures and Marvel Premiere, whatever they were called, the Marvel Super Special.
You remember the Marvel and New Worlds of Science Fiction magazine?
No.
They just had different adaptations of science fiction stories, but different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that when there's early 70s ones? I know they've experimented with a lot of stuff in the early 70s.
Yeah, early to mid 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed out on all that stuff.
Anything that was magazine sized was always attractive for me.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think one of the very first things I really bought off the stands was Savage Sword of Conan.
Oh, okay. I didn't discover that till years after I, found Conan. I remember. So I probably started buying Savage Sword maybe in the early 80s.
I think I probably started buying Savage Sword before I ever bought any of the actual floppy versions. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Matter of fact, over there, I think the first issue of Conan I ever bought was 77. And I didn't start buying it off the stands till about issue 91, I think it was.
Right.
So that was a good year later.
I'm trying to think. I think I'm somewhere between about 30 to 40 issues away from having a complete run of Marvel's Conan.
Oh, okay.
So I have
the end issues. You have the end issues when no one was buying it.
A few of them. Most of the ones I missed.
Probably the hardest issues I get.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Marvel let that license lapse, no one.
Like a second Conan series they did a few years later, and it was just terrible. It was not.
Oh, they tried to revive it. They had a decent artist.
Good.
I remember. Yeah. One of these real detail-oriented artists. I can't remember his name, but he
was it Raphael Canyon?
I don't know. It could have been.
Okay.
I can't remember who it is, but it got a little bit of buzz with whoever that first artist was, but then it died.
I remember liking Kerry Nord when Dark Horse picked up the license.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
Yeah,
that was good stuff. Ever read the Neuro? I think I have it. Was it DC who put out a Neuromancer graphic novel in their graphic novel line?
I think so.
I have that. That might be the only Neuromancer thing I have.
I've read the novel, but I've never read the comic.
I don't remember it being particularly good or bad.
No, it was Epic.
Might have been.
Epic put out Neuromancer, the graphic. It's graphic novel size, though. I don't think it's.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember being Come see, come saw.
I see. Yeah, William Gibson.
Yeah, William Gibson. I remember trying to read the novel and just not being able to get into it in the first chapter, and I put it down. Because it was a gigantic book.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with science fiction to begin with, I wouldn't recommend Neuromancer to a new reader.
Not my thing. I think we can end this now. I'm getting sleepy.
I think I would license comics. I remember reading Battlestar Galactica when I was a kid.
I had the Treasury edition, but it was okay. It was Walt Simonson work, so it was fun. But I was such not a fan of the TV show that.
Oh God, I remember when the TV show came on and I watched it, and I may have blinked twice during the whole thing.
Yeah. And I liked the adaptation of Star Wars better than I liked the movie. I mean, matter of fact, I didn't even see the movie. I was so not interested in the movie. I didn't even see it till like years after it came out. Even though I was 10 when it came out, I was more into comics than movies.
Mm.
So I missed out on that whole Star Wars experience and never really cared.
I mean, it's such a cliche now, but for like people my age, Star Wars literally changed everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I also, even at 10, I didn't trust things that were too popular.
Yeah, I didn't really have that thought at the age of 10.
I somehow did. I don't know why. Yeah. I was like, everybody's into this Star thing.
There used to be a line of convenience stores in the United States called Hop-In, which is long out of business, but very similar to 7-Eleven. We stopped in there one day, and they had a magazine rack, and they had the Treasury-sized comic, Star Wars adaptation. Like, Mom, look at this giant comic book. And I'm sure I pestered the hell out of her, and she bought it for me. I haven't been the same since after that.
That explains my human fly collection. No reason to distrust that. It was never popular. Hey, that's why, Omega the Unknown was one of my favorites as a kid. That wasn't very popular either.
Right.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. Say good night to everyone out there.
Good night to everybody out there.
You guys have a good night. We will catch you next week. And have a good comic reading time.